Allison, you got all my answers.
Fingers crossed. I don't know. I never know.
We'll find out.
You're a sneaky one.
Calls them like I see them.
All right, I'm heading out. Larry really talked to me for an hour about these stupid agendas. I'm like, dude, I have actually read all this because they come through my.
Elizabeth,
Okay.
mute your phone, please.
Hi.
Hey there.
Okay.
She's an attorney. I want to make sure she don't say anything she shouldn't be saying to us.
All right, well, I have the 2 o'clock time on the county computer officially. I just spoke with Paul Livingston a few minutes ago. He's busy with an economic development matter and asked if I would start this meeting and proceed to the point where I can give it up. So I'm now calling the September 22nd Richland County Transportation Ad Hoc Committee meeting to order. And the first business on here, number 2, is approval of the minutes. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to
To
approve.
approve the minutes. Second.
Second.
Okay, there'll be a motion. 2 motions to approve in 2 seconds. I guess that will work. Any discussion? Hearing none. If Ms. Only, you will take the roll, please.
Yes, sir. McBride,
Yes.
Manning,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Malinowski.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, just for the record, while we didn't do a roll call because it's not on here, just as call to order. The committee members we have present are Councilwoman McBride, Councilwoman Myers, Councilman Manning, and Councilman Malinowski. Is that correct, Ms. Only?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next order of business is the adoption of the agenda.
I move to adopt the agenda.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Mr. Niermeyer had sent some Scrivener error changes out to the committee members for those not on the committee. So if you're following, when we get to that point, you'll know. Of course, at the very top, the starting time should have been 2 o'clock, not 1 o'clock. Item number, after item number 5, the second 5 is actually item 6. And under item 6, we have A, B, and C was omitted in front of the petition for annexation of Richland County property. And following 6 should be number 7 would be the adjournment. So with those changes, and we have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda. Ms. Only, if you'll take the vote, please.
Malinowski,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Livingston, here. Manning,
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, next Order of business here is number 4, election of the chair. I'll now open the floor for nominations.
Mr. Chair, I recommend Mr. Manning.
Okay, would that be the same as a nomination?
Yeah, I nominate Mr. Manning.
Okay,
Sorry.
got a nomination for Mr. Manning. Do I hear a second? If not, I will second that. Any additional or other nominations for the chair?
Yes, sir. I wanted to nominate Ms. McBride.
You're so sweet, but I'm going to not accept that, Ms. Myers, but I certainly appreciate it.
Okay, well,
I'd like my nomination to stand, but that's okay.
okay. Is there a even, I would say in spite of the fact that you've nominated her and she has
I decline.
we won't put her in the running then. Any other nominations? Hearing none, we'll close the floor to nominations and proceed with the vote for Mr. Manning to be chair. Ms. Only, if you'll call the vote, please.
Sir, Malinowski,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Manning,
I'll abstain.
Myers.
No,
All right, motion passes.
Okay, the chair has been officially elected as Councilman James Manning. Mr. Manning, I'd say I'll hand you the gavel. You're in charge of the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Malinowski, for getting us this far. And it's an honor for a second time to chair the Transportation Ad Hoc Committee for Richland County. And with that said, we will move through to item 5, items for information. 5A, projects in the process of advertisement for construction. That's on your minutes or your agenda packet, pages 7 through 86. Item 1, resurfacing package R. Item 2, dirt road paving package K. Number 3, Faraway Drive sidewalk as a part of the Decker Woodfield Neighborhood Improvement Project. Mr. Niemeyer, you or somebody on your staff want to give us an update for information on those items, please?
Thank you, Chairman Manning and members of the committee. As Chairman Manning said, there are 3 packages that are getting ready to be advertised. The first of which being the Faraway Drive sidewalk as part of the Decker Woodfield Improvements Project. This is building a 1.5 mile sidewalk, ADA compliant with all the ramps. It should be advertised this Friday. Following Faraway sidewalk, either a resurface dirt road package K should be let next week, which consists of the 4 roads you see in your agenda. About 0.95 miles of road are included in that package. And following that, resurface package R consisting of 52 roads should be let the following week. Those roads are scattered throughout the county. Preponderance, some of them are in District 11. Have any questions?
Any questions, comments, feedback?
The number 3, the Faraway Drive sidewalk, and then you have Decker Woodwood NIP. Are you saying that's a part of it, or?
That's correct, ma'am. Decker Woodfield NIP consisted of several projects, as do most of the neighborhood improvement projects. This was just one of them.
So you're not doing the complete project, you're just doing separate portions of the project? Is that what?
Yes, ma'am. They're broken down into phases. So I believe Faraway might be, I think it's phase 2 or 3. I'll double check on that for you.
It's phase 2 or 3 of Decker Woodfield?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, because I was thinking that each of the neighborhood improvement projects, I thought that you would be working on that entire neighborhood. I didn't know that it was going to be separate.
Yes, ma'am. Traditionally, they've been worked in phases. Typically, there are a number of sidewalk projects that are just done that way. Some of the other improvements had previously been in some type of beautification, but now those have been removed.
Okay, and so the others, I think it's about 4 or 5 others. So that just, we get to those at a later date. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That is correct.
Anything additional? All right. Next items for information are 5B, the newly approved service orders. Blythewood Road area improvements, the Creech Road and McNulty Street, and number 2, Crane Creek Neighborhood Improvement Project. Mr. Niemeyer.
So the department's very excited to have signed by the administrator these 2 service orders, one to Parish and Partners and the other one to Cox and Dinkins, to move to design work for Blythewood Road area improvements. The 2 projects under this design service order is the Creech Road extension as well as McNulty Road between Blythewood and Maine. These were a high priority for the town of Blythewood and will be getting underway, and will be part of the overall money that the referendum has allocated for the Blythewood improvements. The second one is Crane Creek Neighborhood Improvement. This one is, again, some sidewalk projects, about 2.31 miles of sidewalks. This is phase 3 of Crane Creek Neighborhood Improvement, primarily in District 7. That was signed off and awarded to Cox and given to Cox and Dinkins to complete. Any other questions? That's all I have for items for information, Chairman Manning.
Thank you, sir. Any questions about those 2? All right, hearing none, that'll take us to item 6, agenda number 6. Now, these are all items for action. Item A, the Polo Road widening service order, and that is in your agenda on page 87 of 148 with the agenda briefing and the information regarding the scope of services and the service order agreement. And so this is one that's over $1 million. And so technically it needs to come for approval through this committee and then on to full council. And you'll see on page 87 that the recommended action, staff recommends approval of service order 11 to Cox and Dinkins for the design of the Polo Road widening project. Mr. Niemeyer, you need to say anything about that, or are you just going to entertain questions?
I'll entertain any questions this time. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Councilman Malinowski.
Thank you, sir. On page 93 of our agenda, in the second paragraph, for the sake of consistency, there are 4 intersections that are being worked on, but in that second paragraph, the second line says at 3 intersections. So I just want to make sure that we don't say 3 up here, even though we've written 4 down below in the project location area, that they don't come back and say, oh no, you only wanted 3, we'll do the first 3. Just
All right, thank you, sir. Is that correct that where it says 3 intersections, it should say 4?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
That is correct.
That's correct. The technically the 4th one is really half of the intersection of Mallet Hill Road. So I believe that's why they said 3. But I guess if you want to say 3.5, maybe. So it's 3 full intersections and then a portion of the Mallet Hill intersection.
Okay, I think that is the way that paragraph should read then. The
Okay,
second paragraph on that page, if you'll make that adjustment for when it gets to council.
sure.
And the other, and the last item I had that, so that it comes through clearly, is on page 125 of our agenda, Mr. Chair and Mr. Niemeyer, under the final right-of-way plans, where you've got your timeline, you've got 9.5, and then it looks like 101.5. I'm sure that's just a typo, but I believe it's supposed to be 10.5. So let's make that clear for everyone. And I would guess eliminate the bold print on months from NTB, because it makes it seem like this is something special being boldened.
We'll change that. That's correct. It should be 10.5.
10.5.
Yes, sir.
Hey, that's all I have for this one, Mr. Chair. With that one, I would make a motion to approve this.
I have a comment.
Go ahead,
The chair.
Councilwoman McBride.
Yeah, the service order, how does that differ? Did we take that through the procurement process?
Not for these. These are assigned to our own call engineering teams. These are the 5 companies that have already been proved to do our design work. So the work is just divvied out between these 5 firms.
So how do we determine which firm we're going to use?
Actually, most of these were already assigned when the PDT was still here. I believe what they did is they tried to rotate through and make sure each firm was getting a similar number of projects and similar dollar amount. So it was being distributed evenly between the 5.
With those 5 firms, do we have any minority firms within those 5 that we have identified?
I'm not sure. I can double check on that. I do know the 5 use not necessarily minority, because that's not a county requirement, but they do use SLBEs, small local businesses.
Ms. McBride, if I may, if there are several, if you do go into the details, you'll see that there is small business and SLBE and other type of DBE requirements within each of these.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, I did not understand you, Mr. Nehemiah. I'm sorry. What were you saying?
I'm sorry, ma'am. Let me use my other voice. So if you do review any of the service orders and look into how they're negotiated and the different, sub firms, if you will, that are participating, you will find other smaller businesses, DBEs, as well as some SLBEs within those service orders.
Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor to approve service order 11 to Cox and Dinkins for the design of the Polo Road widening project. I have a second.
Second.
All right, been properly approved, moved and second. Do we have any additional discussion? All those in favor by, you read the roll.
Malinowski,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Manning,
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. So that'll be before full council at the next meeting, which will be the first Tuesday of October as a committee recommendation. Our next item, 6B for action, the I-26 widening mitigation credit sales. You'll find that on pages 127 through 140 in your packet. The recommended action is staff recommends the committee concur with these credit sales and forward to full council for approval. This is a time sensitive as the buyer has requested notice of approval prior to October 7th, 2020, at 5 p.m. due to the Army Corps of Engineers permitting constraints. Nehemiah, you want to address anything with that or just answer questions?
Well, I can answer any questions at this time, sir.
Thank you. Questions?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir, Councilman Malinowski.
Thank you, sir. While we have in our agenda something that's called a sales notice, did we ever receive an original letter requesting these credits? This seems like it was some enclosure or attachment to a letter of request.
Yes, sir. I know we received these documents on September 14th after being notified on September 11th from the Mill Creek Mitigation Holdings. There was no letter provided at this time. If you note in paragraph 3 of page 129 sales notice, they mentioned a change in procedure, which,
I saw that.
yeah, and their waiving of the right, or they're waiting to respond within 3 days of a letter, 3 days of notice. So there was no actual letter. We just got the sales notice and the accompanying documents seen in your packet.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Nehemiah, thank you.
Sir, other colleagues, questions, comments? Are we ready for a motion?
Mr. Manning, I have a comment. This is Dalhi Myers.
Yes, ma'am. Vice Chair Myers, you're recognized.
Thank you. Just wanted to comment, Mr. Nehemiah, team, and to the rest of my colleagues. I remain amazed that this mitigation bank continues to make sales of credits and that there's no provision in the documents establishing the mitigation bank or in the council's rules that require that some provision be made to give some portion of this money for improvements to the roads and throughways in the very community where the mitigation bank sits. I think that is a major problem and a major oversight, and for that reason, I'll be voting no on the sale.
All right, thank you, Ms. Myers. Anybody
Yeah.
else?
I have Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
what happens if we don't approve the mitigation sales, credit sale?
Can the host mute Ollie? Go ahead, Mr.
Answer
Nehemiah.
the question.
What happens if we do not approve the mitigation credit sales?
So, Ms. McBride, that's an excellent question. And so what would happen is because of the agreement between Mill Creek Mitigation Holdings and Richland County, we essentially have first right of refusal in this case and other cases. So if we say, no, we're not going to sell any of our credits, for the amount of, the 6.7 credits for $120-some thousand, then Mill Creek Mitigation Holding has credits and they will sell the credits to them, which results in a much lower return to us. I believe if they sell theirs, we receive 20% of the sale price, as opposed to, or we get 8%, and then they would get the 92% of the sale price.
So it would significantly impact us fiscally. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am. Rather than receiving the $24,384 for the Richland County credit of the share of the sales, we would get about 8%, so just about $11,000.
Okay, and I understand Ms. Myers' concerns too, but Ms. Myers, I think your concern is that the procedure that we use in the beginning, is that correct or not?
Yes, ma'am, Ms. McBride, it's that procedure. And in fact, voting on these mitigation credits was the first vote that I took when I came onto this council. And I made this same point then, that it seemed beyond odd that the mitigation bank sits in a space where the roads are terrible and the byways are terrible. And we have no provision to improve any of that area, yet we take money from the mitigation bank in that area for credits for other areas where roads will be improved. And I think that it's not an oversight. I think it's honestly a slap in the face to that community. And that is why I've raised this. Now, this will be the 5th time that I've raised this as an issue with this council. I don't know that we would establish a mitigation bank or anything in the middle of Forest Acres and reap significant dollars, millions of dollars from that community with no thought of any improvement that needed to be done in the community where the money is being raised. And I don't think that those citizens' concerns about it would be ignored as these citizens' concerns are being ignored. And I raise that again because I think it is honestly, if the county gets $100,000 or $10,000 from the sale of these mitigation credits, I think it is almost criminal that all of the money goes out of the community where you're raising the money. So it is a process question, Ms. McBride, but it is also a question of priorities. Thank you for asking.
Mr. Chair, may I ask Ms. Myers one more question?
You certainly may.
Ms. Myers, then, is there any way at this point that we could do anything based on your expertise in the area to correct this?
I think that we could always, with 3 readings and a public hearing, we could always change the procedures that we use for things with this body. I don't know that there is the will, but yes, I'd be willing to work with you and anybody else to look at a way that we improve the area where this mitigation bank sits as a part and parcel of creating this literally 4,000 acre mitigation bank to help with other projects. So I think that's great. If you'd be willing to work with me, I'm happy to collaborate with you and anybody else and with our county attorney's office to see what they might suggest as a way forward. So yes, ma'am, I think that's a good suggestion.
All right, that sounds like a great plan to move forward to correct something that went wrong years ago.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
My comment on that is, my take is different from Ms. Myers. The land was bought from an individual that wanted to sell it. And I do not think that regardless of where the bank is located, that it's set up to put money into the community where the land is in any way. That would be like going back now, and we'll have to change the entire way that the county does business for everything. And that is because hospitality taxes, certainly we know they're collected in some areas much more than others, but the entire county benefits on a somewhat equal but not equal basis from those. The same with accommodations tax, the same with this taxes in general, where you've got more commercial entities paying greater taxes. We don't put more money into that area where it's coming from. It's used to do the county business as the county sees fit. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you, Mr. Malinowski.
I'd just like to briefly respond to that.
Sure.
Generally, Mr. Malinowski, I agree with you. I think you're absolutely right. But in the case of hospitality taxes, that is why there is a formula that we use for H taxes in the unincorporated parts of Richland County, because that is where they're collected. And we make a serious point of reminding everyone that those taxes, that money ought to be reinvested in the community that's paying the tax. That is always something that sticks in Ms. McBride's craw as well, because we make a point of that, those of us who serve constituencies in unincorporated Richland County as well, to the extent that I agree with you that the tax money ought to be used to serve the whole of Richland County. I have no beef with that, but it ought not be used to serve the whole of Richland County except the locus of where the money is found. So the site of where this thing sits, this mitigation bank sits, is a space in Richland County. It's not outside of Richland County, so it ought not be ignored because the mitigation bank is there. I mean, it seems to me that if we're reaping a substantial benefit from a particular part of the county, that there ought to be some substantial or even minimal benefit, something. $5 is better than where we are today, that says to that community, we recognize that you are giving a great service to the county, and in exchange for that, we're going to make sure that the roads you drive on actually are passable, and we, as much as we can improve them, and maybe we build a sidewalk here for you as well, since there isn't one. And all I'm suggesting is that that area ought not be ignored, given that it is making possible improvements in all other areas. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all for that great robust discussion. The item before us is the staff recommendation of these credit sales to forward to full council for approval, so that Richland County will get the money instead of somebody else for the most part. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Second? I'll go ahead and second that motion. Any further discussion? Miss Only, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Malinowski,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes, to move it forward.
Manning,
Yes.
Myers.
No.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. The next item before us is 6C, item for action, the petition for annexation of Richland County property, Three Rivers Greenway, Saluda Riverwalk. This is page 141 in your agenda. And the recommended action is staff recommends the committee concur with the petition from the City of Columbia for annexation of the subject property from Richland County to the City of Columbia as part of the Three Ways Greenway Saluda River project. And the accompanying information is on page 142, 143, and 144 of your packet. Mr. Niemeyer, is there anything in particular that you'd like to address with this, or begin with what questions the committee members may have?
No, Chairman Manning, I'll just address any questions your committee may have.
Thank you, sir. Questions?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Councilman Malinowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We've got a staff recommendation to ask the city to do annexation of this property, but in the subject matter under the up above under the four recommendations there, it says an ordinance authorizing a deed to the City of Columbia. To me, that's two different things. Authorizing a deed to someone means we're either selling or giving them the property, versus annexation means we are still keeping the property. So which is it?
That's a good question, staff.
Ms. McLean, are you able to answer that for us?
I can, if you like. This issue came to legal recently. We did not know that the county actually owned any property of the Greenway. The city is going to maintain this portion that is complete. They need us to give them permission to annex it. In the interim, as far as I know, the plan is to then deed it to the property as part of this overall project. Deed the property to the city, I mean. This is actually near my issue, but I mean, that's the best of my knowledge. This is what I can tell you is they want us to currently get it annexed so they can maintain it, but the plan is to deed it to the city. And I'm not sure what the timetable of that is. That's a Michael question, but yes, we would need an ordinance to deed it. We do not need the ordinance for annexation, not for permission anyway.
All right, so Mr. Niemeyer, this is a two-step process. Do we have a time frame following annexation? That I'm assuming this will be back to the committee to actually do the subject matter as opposed to what's the recommended action at this point?
Yes, sir. So the county this week should be submitting the final drawings, surveys to the city for approval, which has been their requirement to assume the project, or what we're calling phase 1A of the project. The annexing of these properties, since they sit right in the middle of the greenway, will be required by the city in order to conduct full operations and maintenance of the greenway facility. So I'm looking at that now and noticing a petition for deed, which you are correct, Mr. Malinowski, a different matter than authorizing deed. So I'll have to confer with Ms. McLean on how to properly put this before the council if you allow us to move forward with it.
Well, that just raises another question to me then, because we don't know at this point if we're going to deed this over to the city. I would hope that we would at least get our initial investment back from them, or if the city refuses to purchase it, then the question would be, if Richland County property becomes annexed into the city of Columbia, do we now have to begin paying property taxes on that property?
Mr. Malinowski, we're actually tax exempt, so we would not have to pay taxes to the city of Columbia for those two parcels.
Okay, even though it's Richland County in the city, we're tax exempt.
Yes, sir. That's what I was informed of.
That's correct.
Okay, and
Mr. Malinowski, I'm sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that, essentially where we are is part of this project is complete, part 1A, and the city has actually started maintaining already. We have not given them the complete design plans yet, but they are maintaining the property. And for them to do that legally, right now they'd be just on our property. So they want to get this annexed into the city. That makes sense. As for your question about them paying, I believe that was all taken care of in the original agreement with the city. If my recollection serves, where we said we were just going to be, essentially deeding over the property to them in the end. Now, I could be wrong about that. I'm not looking at it now. Michael, you might want to jump in on that if I'm wrong, but I think basically that part of this agreement was taken care of in the original process.
Yes, Mr. McLean, I'm with you on that. I believe it is in their original intergovernment agreement with the city. It has always been the intent after the county secured those two properties we call Boozer properties, is to deed those over and complete the whole of the properties that are involved in the Three Rivers Greenway. We can verify that.
Mr. Niemeyer, these funds are coming out of penny tax funds then?
Yes, sir. This was purchased with part of the $7.2 million for this project out of penny funds.
Okay. This will be, I'm guessing, forwarded to council one way or the other, either with or without a recommendation. I would like, by the time it gets there, to see also the legal review portion filled in. And it's probably not done because Ms. McLean says that they just recently got it. So I don't know why they just recently got it. I would think a matter we're talking here, annexation and potentially a deed turnover, that they should have been the first ones to get it.
They had stamped it, sir. I'm not sure why that wasn't filled in.
Yeah.
I'll take responsibility for that.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Malinowski, I did review the annexation part. It's stamped and complete. We have not discussed the property turnover much with Michael, other than to tell him that it would need an ordinance for us to do that when he's ready to go forward.
Thank you.
Okay, so if we bifurcate this, Because if we're going to do a deed, that's going to take 3 readings and public hearing. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, sir.
And so if the issue of letting them annex it, but it's still ours, but at the point of annexation, they will more properly be able to do the work that they're doing on there, now the maintenance work that they're doing on it now would attend to that. And then when we figure out that other issue, we come back before this committee to move forward as a ordinance change. Is that correct?
That makes sense to me, Mr. Malinowski. I mean, Mr. Manning. Sorry, sir.
So it sounds like, unless somebody tells me different, it sounds like the committee subject probably should have been written in line with the action item here is like the recommended action about moving forward with the annexation. Does that sound right to staff? Okay.
Yes,
And then if
clear
that's
to-
the
clear
case,
to-
do I have a motion for what is under the recommended action to concur with the petition from the City of Columbia for annexation of the subject property as specified here?
So moved. Do I have to repeat it?
No, ma'am. It's been
Okay.
properly moved. I'll second it. Further discussion? Ms. Only, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Malinowski,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Manning,
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. That takes us to the next to last item on our agenda. Item 6, items for action, letter D, Transportation Department Organization. That's found on page 145, agenda briefing. Recommended action is staff respectfully requests approval of the proposed organizational chart, which is attachment 1 in your document, which adds a financial manager transportation position for the department. You see in the taxonomy on page 148 of 148 where that position would be located. And Mr. Niemeyer, I believe, if I recall correctly, that the money for this position was in the FY21 budget approved by council. This is really just a matter of the fact that council has to approve organizational charts.
That's correct, Chairman Manning.
All right. Do you have anything else to add or looking for questions from the committee members?
We'll go with questions from committee again, sir.
All righty, Councilman Malinowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You did start by stating the position was on page 148. In the fiscal impact, it says the new finance manager. On page 148, I don't see anything listed as a finance manager. Is that instead the senior accountant?
Yes, sir. It should be 147.
Oh, I'm sorry. 147, please forgive me.
All right.
It's on the top row, the fourth one over from the left.
I see it there now. We're not putting it in this chart on the back page then, right?
Mr. Malinowski, page 148 was just the previously approved organization from March 2019. What we're proposing to add is that new position.
It's on page 148.
No, sir, as I mentioned, the new positions on page
I
147.
heard that. What's 148?
148 is just the old org chart of the department that was approved by council when the council elected to bring the program in-house.
148 at the top, Appendix A, it says proposed organizational chart.
Yes, sir. It's an old graphic that I pulled from the old agenda from that time period, sir.
Well, then I guess I'm not prepared to discuss this because I was using 148 as a proposed. I do have two other questions I'll ask, and then I'll have to review that other chart. I'm not going to do it now and hold things up.
All right, your other questions, sir?
Other questions? Will this position only be for the duration of the penny tax?
This position and every other position in the department will exist during the penny tax, sir.
Okay, the individual being hired now as well as other individuals, are they being made aware of this? Is there some document that they have to sign indicating they're aware of it, that their position is only because of the penny tax?
No, sir. I don't believe any of our hiring documents have that language in our offer letters.
Yeah, I may be wrong. I'd like a legal opinion. I think that's something that we should be putting in there, because if I get hired and I'm not told that this position goes away in 2 years or 10 years, I may want to come back and litigate as to why I'm being let go.
Mr. Malinowski, I can look into that for you if you want, but my first thought is that, you know, you're not guaranteed a position for any length of time unless you're a contract employee and have some conditions to employment. But usually the only employees that we have told ahead of time with the grant position we know is going away. Now, this penny money is going away eventually. I think 20-something years or something. So the plan may be that we eventually get rid of this, but you're also looking at the council could change that anytime, any way they wanted and keep the transportation department. So I'll be glad to put some more research into that, but right off the top of my head, I don't see any big issues with it.
That sounds fine, Ms. McLean. Thank you. There's no need for you to put any additional effort in it. Thank you.
And actually, just for clarification, the penny as it was passed was for 22 years, or at the point the amount was collected, but also in terms of the bonding element of what was on the ballot was the understanding of that would and could be a tool or mechanism for which the projects could all be completed even before all the penny came in. So an employee going into that department, I don't believe you could tell them when the end's going to be, because we don't know when the money is going to actually hit the amount. And if we have all the projects completed prior to even when the money's coming in, because the money can still be coming in to pay off bonds, that there are several factors in there that nobody can put a time frame on for employment. Although probably
I wouldn't just in for a time frame. Thank you.
Okay. So, Mr. Malinowski, are you thinking this is something that we could move forward on and have this corrected and properly in the council packet that comes before us, that we know enough to move it ahead and have the two documents properly addressed in their titles? Or are you wanting to keep it here for another month?
Well, you can move it forward, but some of the questions I had on the last page would probably transfer to page 147 as I take a quick look at the organizational chart, where you've got the director, and underneath the director now you have 5 positions. And in those 5 positions, and that's what I was looking at on the back page also, that in those 5 positions, you have an assistant director. And to me, an assistant director is the number 2 person. So in the absence of the director, an assistant director should actually have the ability to be over all other employees and departments that are there. And the way it's written right now, the assistant director takes care of project managers. So in the absence of the director, you've got somebody else. You've got a contract and budget manager taking care of inspectors. That just, to me, not being an expert in this field, but it sure doesn't seem like I'd want somebody knowledgeable in contracts only to be telling me what I should be doing with inspections. It kind of seems like we've got a conflict there. I tend to think that the assistant director should be bumped up to a number 2 position under the director by themselves, with everybody else having to report to that assistant director if the need is there. Because right now, you've got a finance manager position, which is the new one, that reports to nobody but the director. So if there's a problem with some type of finance management, the assistant director can't do it. So it seems to me the assistant director, maybe I'm creating additional burdens for that position, whoever that may be, but it seems to me that they're not fully in charge of what they should be in that position. Now, I'm willing to listen to anybody tell me why it's that way.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. McBride?
Yeah, I have concerns too, because what's before us is you're asking us to vote on the organizational chart. Is that
actually what is before us is the adding to the organizational chart a finance manager, which was funded in the recently approved budget.
So
it's really not. Go ahead, Ms. McBride.
No, you finished. Go ahead.
The clarification, Mr. Chair, and to respond to Ms. McBride's comment, I agree with her and disagree with you, because under recommended action, it says staff respectfully request approval of the proposed organizational chart, which adds a finance manager. So Ms. McBride is correct. They want approval of an organizational chart.
Yeah, that was my concern, Mr. Chair, and because I was initially thinking the same one on the page that you gave us, 148, that was the proposed chart, but I didn't see the position like Mr. Malinowski. And I don't know about this organizational chart that I'm looking at. I think it's Mr. Malinowski. I think this is a flat organizational chart, which is what they're trying to do. But I don't know whether that's the best.
That being the case, since we've got 2 of the members thought otherwise, I'd make a motion to keep it in committee to discuss at the next meeting, Mr. Chair.
All right, we have a motion to hold item 6D in committee. Is there a second?
Well, is there a need that this be moved on immediately, wherein we could get the information by the time it's full, council, Mr. Nehemiah? Mr. Manning?
Mr. Nehemiah?
If I could understand exactly the information you're requesting, I believe I could get it to you and then some before the next meeting on October 6th, if that would be okay. Essentially what I'm asking to vote on is if you approve it, org chart attachment 1, it adds that finance manager position. The rest of the organization isn't before you.
I think the question is, what is the time sensitivity and urgency of moving forward on hiring this one position, given that there are questions about the whole organizational chart, and the written request in front of us really is not about that position, it's about approving the organizational chart.
Personally, I'm selfish and I would like to attempt to hire for that position as soon as possible to get that expertise and leadership in finance and accounting within the department. However, if we want to address it as a bigger organizational issue, we can defer it to the next committee meeting, if that's the desire of this committee.
Mr. Chair, I have a recommendation.
Yes, sir, Councilman.
Maybe it would be a motion, and that would be to send to the council a recommendation to approve the hiring of the finance manager that is being requested. And then the second portion of an organizational chart be brought back to this committee and discussed at the next meeting.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and second to proceed with to recommend to full council the hiring of the finance manager, transportation within the department, and that at the next Transportation Ad Hoc Committee, that we will take up the overall organizational chart for any recommendations that we would want to look at in changing the organization of the Transportation Planning Department. I understand that correctly, Mr. Malinowski?
That's correct, Chairman.
Mr. Niemeyer, you understanding the motion?
Yes, sir.
All right, any further discussion? Ms. Only, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Malinowski,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Manning,
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Motion passes.
And please forgive me, before we adjourn, want to recognize our colleague Allison Teratio had joined on. And if you'll make sure that the minutes reflect that our colleague Councilwoman Teratio was present for the meeting.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. And again, I apologize. I didn't recognize you earlier. If you would have said
That's
you
okay.
wanted to speak, I certainly would have called on you, but.
Well, I was just very curious to make sure that the Greenway moved forward, because I know people are on that Greenway and want to make sure that it continues to move forward so it can be properly maintained and everybody can be safe out there. Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am. Thank you. Anybody else on the committee have anything you want to say for the good of your district, the county, or the world we live in?
Yes, sir.
Go right ahead.
We're having sidewalks installed on Harrison Road, and the contractor is doing an excellent job thus far. The only thing is that nobody knows it's being funded by the penny tax, because there's no way that we communicate that to the community anymore.
Yes, ma'am. That was part of the decision of council and DOR and all that to not do the kind of publicity that we'd done originally. I'm
And
sorry.
so the good things that the transportation pennies, the good things that are being done, oftentimes the community is not aware of it. But that there, Mr. Nehemiah, I at least want you to know that that contractor thus far is doing an excellent job.
All right, great. Thank you for that report, Councilwoman McBride.
There's nothing else, Mr. Chair. I'll move to adjourn.
Have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Properly second. Miss Only, call the roll, please.
Malinowski,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Manning,
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, staff. Thank you, colleagues. Y'all have a good afternoon, and we'll see you later in the day at some committee or another.